One of the biggest issues that's emerged in the latest session of the St. Louis Board of Aldermen is whether to close a jail that's widely known as the Workhouse. And one of the public officials that's leading that charge is St. Louis Alderman Dan Guenther. Guenther joins us on the latest edition of Politically Speaking to talk about the campaign to close the Workhouse and the impasse over approving nominees to the Board of Freeholders. Let's hit the music.
This is the Politically Speaking podcast, the definitive show about Missouri politics.
It's a little complicated in Bolivar because there is a Parsons family there.
But we also knew that it was important to make sure that we got to where we needed to go.
You know, if you walk in a room and you're getting ready to make a decision and everybody in the room looks like you need to stop.
And right now what happens in the United States Senate is as critical as anywhere else in the country.
I really want the state to succeed.
Well, we want everybody to know that we're all working together.
I just worked hard to try to build my name where I didn't have the money.
And welcome to Politically Speaking. I'm your host, St. Louis Public Radio political correspondent Jason Rosenbaum. Joining me in studio today is
Rachel Littman.
And our special guest joining us for the first time since 2017. Wow. Where does the time go? Our guest today is
Dan Guenther, Alderman of the 9th Ward.
Just to remind our listeners, if they didn't listen to that very popular episode in 2017, what is the boundaries of the 9th Ward?
The 9th Ward basically takes all of Benton Park West. So our northern boundary is Gravois Avenue. It goes Gravois going up north towards 55. So then we come down 55, taking part of Soulard, Cherokee Street, Marine Villa neighborhood, and then I go all the way down the riverfront to a wonderful neighborhood called Mount Pleasant.
So you have the brewery. It's kind of the big landmark in your ward.
The brewery is definitely the biggest landmark. We have a whole lot of other landmarks. I would like the Lemp Brewery, which has some great developments coming that way. And then I would also say Sugarloaf Mound, the last mound standing in the city of St. Louis, is also in the 9th Ward. So the brewery, Anheuser-Busch, is definitely our big landmark, though.
You're almost at year 3 of your aldermanic service. How has it been so far?
It's been, I would say, it's been quite an adventure. It's one of those things where every day is a new challenge. Every day you learn something new. Obviously, when you get into the Board of Aldermen, they don't really give you a handbook as to what the daily occurrences are going to be. So you pretty much every day is something new. It is, I like to say, it's everything I expected and much, much more.
What has been sort of the biggest adjustment to, you were active with issues like greening with Brightside, the Operation Brightside, and some other things. But what's the biggest adjustment now that you're responsible for that and so much more in your ward?
Well, I try to continue. I do a lot of volunteer work still with Brightside. This next week we have a group of high school seniors come in to do some cleanups in the ward. So I still do a lot of volunteer work and help out a lot with Brightside, help out a lot with forest relief and some of the other kind of greening initiatives that I was always in support of. But I would say the biggest challenge is just that, a lot of days, especially when we're in session, we're at City Hall, we're learning about not only bills that are coming through, but new programs that are being offered. So being able to kind of, allocate the time to not just go to, one neighborhood association and be involved with the events and committees and stuff of one neighborhood, but now, you're looking at 7 neighborhoods. And so it's every month, it's kind of when a new month comes, I almost look at it as Groundhog's Day, and it's like, okay, well, here comes Soulard meeting, Benton Park meeting, Marineville, here's this, and it's just this kind of repetitive sort of making sure that you're at all these meetings to be able to engage with your constituents and let them know what's going on in the ward and in the city as a whole.
What's the biggest misconception that you would have had about sort of City Hall, the way it functions as a resident and someone who was working with the city through their volunteer work and jobs, that you realize wasn't entirely correct now that you're sort of inside that operation?
Well, there's a handful of things, but I would say probably the biggest thing is just the you're coming in and, being part of the Board of Aldermen is the legislative sort of branch of our government. So we get questions every day. Our phone's ringing off the hook about more government services sort of things, our actual different departments. And so I would say the biggest thing that was that has been a shock and also a learning curve is just they're really the communication between departments is something that we obviously need to work on. It's to me, it's interesting that you go to one say building division and they can't tell you what zoning has done or what excise has done, or you kind of have to figure out each different individual department and figure out who your contacting your liaison is with that department. And a lot of times there's no one phone call gets you answers. You have to really do a lot of digging. Whereas I thought coming into it is like, oh well, as an alderman, be able to hop onto this CityWorks network or have some sort of central communication hub to where we're finding out answers on problems. But instead, we just have to do a lot of boot work and really just kind of hitting the ground and calling everyone that we can to get answers for stuff.
Well, let's talk about an issue that you've been kind of on the forefront of, and that is a bid to close St. Louis's medium security institution.
Yep.
I just want to make sure I got that name right, which is better known as the Workhouse. I want you to just explain very simply why you think this city jail should be closed.
How to explain it very simply? Well,
or very complicated.
Or very complicated.
This is the podcast. We can nerd out about it.
Right. Let's do it complicated. So there's a number of issues at play here. There's talk about kind of the overall really criminal justice reform as being something that not only the city needs to look at, but our courts need to look at, the judges need to look at. There's a whole bunch of pieces that all come together to look at what criminal justice reform really is. And when you look at the Workhouse, I look at the different lawsuits that have been brought against the city of St. Louis for inhumane conditions, for holding people indefinite amount of times, for never, just being charged with a crime and never actually convicted of a crime. So it's really just kind of a holding place for people until they can finally meet with a lawyer, finally meet with a judge. And sometimes, that takes 6-7 months. It has in the past. And that's what brought about these lawsuits. And so when the city of St. Louis looked at starting to address these things, and we actually got a Supreme Court decision to say, we have to have a fast turnaround for people if they're convicted of something, a fast turnaround for them being able to actually be charged and be able to post a bail and get out. And so bail reform is obviously a big part of the closing the Workhouse, and that's why we've gotten to the numbers that we have right now, to where we have a facility that was originally able to hold almost 1,200, like 1,185 people, but almost 1,200 people, and we're down right around 200 people that we're holding now. So if we're continuing to look at trends, and we're seeing that the courts, the judges, we're getting the numbers of people that are being held down, then the next thing we need to look at is how do we go about going to a one facility city, whereas right now we have not only the Workhouse but also the Justice Center. So we have two facilities to be able to house people, and if we can get to the point where only one facility is needed, then we can go ahead and take a look at the money that we have in our budget for running the Workhouse right now. How can we allocate that towards other services for our citizens? So there's whether that's pretrial services, making sure that people are able to be released, but then they have kind of like a social worker to be able to help them with transportation, getting text messages of when their trials are coming about, all the pretrial sort of things. But we can also look at things such as we don't have any sort of right now we don't have any sort of the 24-hour walk-in shelter for our unhoused citizens. So how can we go about those sort of programs, or how can we help out those individuals? We don't have anything for victim services. So a lot of times people that are a victim of a crime, they don't have a whole lot of follow-up from whether that's social workers or the police department or anyone to really kind of help with some of the trauma that comes with being a victim. So there's a whole lot of services that we continue to have citizens and we continue to have people ask for. But then when as a legislator we go about and start bringing up these issues, issues, we're immediately told, well, we don't have money to address those things. So if we can look at a way to close down the workhouse and be able to redirect our money into services for our people, then I think that it's ultimately going to be what lowers crime rates down versus just straight incarceration.
So we actually have a clip from St. Louis Mayor Lyda Krewson when she was on our show St. Louis on the Air. And the host of that show, Sarah Fensky, asked about whether she would be committed to closing the workhouse.
Yeah, the question was basically, do you see a time where we could get to one jail operating in the city of St. Louis?
We're almost there now. We got 232 people at MSI. So we're not there yet, but we've worked very hard at that.
Are you
on the
committed
other
to
hand,
getting there?
I am. However, I want to make sure that we can detain the people who need to be detained. There are folks who believe that our crime, violence, is related to not having enough people detained. I don't happen to think that's the case right now, but I do know that there's a balance here that you have to do to keep the public safe, detain the people who need to be detained.
So what do you make of the mayor's comments and other comments she's made about closing the workhouse?
And just on, based on what you have seen her and her people do sort of behind the scenes.
Yeah. I see it as encouraging. There's definitely been multiple, I would say a little over 2 years that different organizations, again, the Bail Project, Arch City Defenders, other groups have been working towards this criminal justice reform and working towards the overall goal of closing the workhouse. I say it's encouraging that we now have our other elected officials, such as the mayor, coming out saying that, their overall goal is eventually to get to one facility. And when we're looking at, looking at the numbers, from looking at the report right here, we've had a 55% decrease in our MSI population since, September of 2018 until July of 2019. So I look at it as, a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, there were a lot of the same people saying, we can never close the workhouse. We have to have that facility. Then maybe 6 months ago, we had the same people saying, well, maybe we can look at how we can repurpose that facility, and maybe we can look at ways that facility can be used for other services. And now we're finally to the point to where, even the mayor's office, room 200, kind of had a fact sheet that they gave out to the Public Safety Committee. And in that fact sheet, it does say that their overall goal is getting down to one facility. So, I completely agree with the mayor that, obviously people that are a danger to society, especially cases of domestic violence, gun violence, those items, of course, those are not people that are going to be walking out free. But when we're looking at the numbers and we see that we've had a 55% decrease in the number of people at MSI, or the medium security / workhouse, and a lot of that is due to some of the bail reform issues, but then at the same time, we've had a 58% increase in our federal detainees. So what the city's doing is we're increasing, when we have open beds, we're increasing the number of federal detainees that we have. And so a big part of the Close the Workhouse is saying that the city doesn't need to be the one that are holding federal detainees. We can have all the room we need if we let other areas, whether that's St. Louis County or any other, I think St. Anne has a facility, any other place that can hold federal detainees, let them hold them, and then we would have enough room in our Justice Center to be able to house everyone that is, a threat to society from the workhouse, be able to hold them there.
Now, obviously, a lot of criminal justice areas in reform are not something that the mayor would have any hand in. It's a lot with prosecution, judges, etc.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, she's saying here that eventually, yes, we would like to get down to one facility. What would you like to see her do to sort of put some meat and a plan behind those words within the limit of what she can do as mayor in the criminal justice system?
Well, in the resolution that we push forward that is asking for the closing of the workhouse, that resolution is basically, a lot of people have thought that the resolution is saying, open the doors, turn off the lights, and let everyone go. It does not say that. The resolution basically says that the Board of E&A, the Board of Estimates and Apportionment, could go ahead and come up with a plan of, whether that's going to be the next 6 months, the next year, the next couple of years, of a plan of how we are going to be reducing our federal inmates to be able to house the MSI people people. And so at the same time, this plan, and I've had a lot of conversations with other aldermen and other people in the field that say, some of the things that they're concerned about, such as placement of all the employees that are currently at the workhouse. So that's something that we could put into the plan. I've met with the public safety director, the Dale Glass, the commissioner of the jails, and they say that there's about 50 openings right now in the Justice Center. So we have a spot where all of our employees that are currently working in corrections in the workhouse, if we have a place for them, that should be in the plan. We also, talk all the time about how many overall jobs there are in the city of St. Louis that are available. So if we need to have some money that's allocated towards retraining to be able to place people from corrections into other departments, then we can do that. So what's the overall goal? The overall goal is to get the mayor and the Board of E&A to say we're dedicated to coming up with a plan of how, in a certain time period, we can get down to the point where we only need to be paying for one facility. And there's a lot of questions about the price of what it costs us to run the workhouse. But you can look through our budget books, and when we see there's roughly about a $16 million budget to run the workhouse, and of course that's, food, that's healthcare, that's clothing, that's, all the things that go, employment, the utilities. But if we have some portion of that money that we are able to save by closing that facility, then that's the amount of money that we look at to be able to reinvest in other social services. And so I think that's the overall goal, is coming up with a plan of how this can work over time.
So back in January, you were at a press conference that unveiled this plan to close the workhouse, and you spoke about this resolution, which was going to be heard through the Public Safety Committee. Yes. And just wanted to kind of lay out where you were at that time in terms of optimism around getting this resolution passed.
We have quite a few others that have either signed on already, which, as was reported, is in the press release. But then there are a number of others that we've been working with over the last week to really kind of highlight some of the issues, that getting wording into the resolution about the job placement and a couple other issues like that. So we're confident that we'll be able to gather the support that we need to get the 15.
So 15 is the magic number at the Board of Aldermen to pass anything. It would be that resolution or the budget. Where do things stand today with Resolution 205? Are you still that optimistic individual you were back in January?
Well, I'm always optimistic, and I do believe that there are a lot of people, again, that I've talked to on the board that say that overall, yes, they think that this is the right thing to do. However, there are still a number of questions that need to be answered. So, of course, I'm still optimistic. I'm not sure at the moment. I'm not sure if this is going to be something that we're going to be able to get through this session, because we only have 1 week left in this session, and then the last day sine die. But this is something we're going to continue to fight for. Like I said earlier, this is something that has been there's been progress on this for over 2 years. We're continuing to see our numbers go down in the number of people that we're detaining. So I'm continuing to be optimistic that this is something that in 2020 we are going to be able to come up with a way to say eventually this workhouse will be closed.
We'll be right back after this short break with Alderman Dan Guenther. And we're back on Politically Speaking with St. Louis Alderman Dan Guenther. I want to talk about an issue that I think has become a partial obsession for me and to some extent Rachel, and that is...
Only because he sits across from me.
Yeah, and that is the inability for the city to seat its members to the Board of Freeholders. Now, you're on the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee.
I am.
And you have probably been through many, many frustrating weeks and months of inability to approve freeholder nominees. And unfortunately, the chairman of this committee, Sam Moore, passed away. So that creates another wrinkle of inactivity that makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. But for a lot of people who want to see this process go forward, they're saying, what the heck is going on? Why is the city not meeting its constitutional obligations? And when is there going to be a resolution? So I guess those are 3 questions to start off with, but
Question 1, what is going on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does anyone know really what's going on?
Right. And yes, I do sit on that committee, Intergovernmental Affairs, and we've had many meetings. The first meeting that we had to address the Board of Freeholders, or the Board of Electors, as we're supposed to be now calling it, was a little over 6 hours of interviewing possible appointees to that. And so from the first meeting, there was and it seems like there's always a issue when it comes to the mayor having a group of people they appoint, whether it's this Board of Electors or it's any sort of board that is appointed, even like SID boards and stuff like that. That rightfully so, our citizens and the representatives of North City, they want to make sure that there is fair representation of everyone across the city. So the first meeting that we had, there were a number of people that were appointed that were Central Corridor or South City, that some of our colleagues wanted to see more kind of north of Del Mar representation. So that was the first thing that held it up. Then we went through and we had some people that were kind of suggested or reappointed. We had one meeting where not 30 minutes before we walked into the meeting, we had an agreement between myself and the chairman and the vice chairman, Alderwoman Tyus from the First Ward. We went in thinking that we all finally came to an agreement. This has now been a couple months ago. We walk into the meeting, and all of a sudden the names that were on the table in front of us were different from what we agreed on 30 minutes ago. So we kind of at that point, that was when one of the representatives or one of the nominees, LaShawna Lewis, was excluded. And I thought, in a city as diverse as ours, and a city with as much, culture and vibrant community that we have, that it would be ridiculous for us to have zero LGBT representation on the board. So then that was what kind of held it up. We wanted to have some LGBTQ plus sort of representation. So then, as of just even here, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, we thought that we finally had a list of nominees that would be able to get through. And then, unfortunately, that's when the chairman really kind of his illness really set in. And then, for the last couple of weeks, I think it's just been a little bit out of respect, and then also just a lot of things just going on right now that we have not been brought back for our Intergovernmental Affairs Committee. But I am optimistic on that as well, that we are going to have we have a set of names. The vice chair, just as of last week, the vice chair said that she's been having successful meetings with the mayor's office, that they seem to be coming to a agreement that will hopefully not only have representation north of Del Mar, but we'll also have some LGBT and also hopefully a Hispanic representative on there.
This has struck me a little bit, and I don't know if this is just because the mayor knows that she's going to have a re-election campaign, she's going to have an opponent from the Board of Aldermen, but there have been a lot of things that have struck me as kind of beyond the natural tension between the legislative and the executive branch in any government, whether it's, the mayor's office. There's been a lot of complaints that the mayor's office isn't listening to aldermen, and there was a big kerfuffle last week with the amount that's available in ward capital accounts and that it's not being spent. Is this just normal tension between an executive and a legislative branch, or is this going beyond that?
As was mentioned at the beginning, I'm in my third year down there, so it's hard for me to say if this is just the normal. But I do think that especially with this, the Board of Electors / Board of Freeholders issue. You have to look at where this kind of originally came from. When the Better Together plan was put out there, and there was a lot of opposition from people in the Board of Aldermen and citywide, a lot of opposition to this Better Together plan of kind of being a top-down sort of directive of, hey, this is how we're going to combine the city and county and all 89 municipalities, and this is how we're going to change our regional government. But it didn't really have any input from neighbors and communities, and especially North City communities. So I think that there's still a lot of kind of anger and like kind of leftover over sort of feelings about how that process was put together. And so then for the Board of Freeholders to come through, I personally look at it as like, well, this is just an opportunity for us to have some really great dialogue between the city and county of what sort of issues can we work on. We don't need to look at combining, the city and county. We don't need to look at some giant merger unification right now. But what services can we provide that we can work on together? And, one of them, obviously, is the health and human services issues. We're looking at right now with things that are going on with the coronavirus. Why are we not having the city and the county both sitting at the table talking about what we're doing regionally? So I think that there's still, I would say that is this normal? I would hope it isn't normal, but I do think that there's still a lot of anger over the way that the Better Together was proposed, and I think that there's not as much willingness from some members to say, okay, well, let's try to do Plan B. They want things to stay the way they are, the city to be its own, not to unify with the county, and so I think because of that, there's just kind of some roadblocks that people don't want to look at how we can combine services.
Is there a lot of anger with Cruzen for supporting the Better Together plan and wanting to give ultimate power over to now incarcerated St. Louis County Executive Steve Stanger?
I think that is in a lot of people's in the back of their mind of how easy the leadership in the city was about to hand over the Metro Mayor position to someone that we did not elect. And I know that I think that there still are a lot of people that feel like this is being pushed upon them. And although the Board of Freeholders, Board of Electors sort of thing is more of a bottom down or a bottom up. I mean, it's more of the bottom up sort of planning because it's a group of individuals that are, community activists, education people, a lot of teachers actually in the ones that were appointed by the city. There's a lot of retired teachers. So I think that there's, it's a lot more community-based of how to come up with some sort of working together. But there's definitely some anger of, people calling it the Better Together 2 and how they see this as being something that's pushed upon them.
In the little bit of time that we have left this afternoon, what are you looking forward to for next session? Obviously, you said that there are 2 more days left in this one this week. Then you'll be on spring break until April to wrap up this business. Starting April, whatever the first day is of the 2020-2021 session, What is the alderman from the 9th Ward going to be pushing?
We have a lot of things that we are pushing, a lot of things I'm looking forward to. Some of the things that are currently being worked on, my colleague from the 6th Ward, Christine Gracia, there is a paid family leave bill that is being worked on. I'm excited to be, supporting that and doing whatever I can to help push that along. Every month when I go to neighborhood meetings, every month I'm talking about how many positions are open in the city of St. Louis. And when I get phone calls about a trash not being picked up or a pothole not being filled, you automatically go to the fact that we are down so many employees that we're scrambling to keep all these pieces working. So I'm really excited that in this session that the board was able to not only approve a one-time kind of bonus for all city employees, but also for the first time we have a 3% pay raise for the next 2 years, where from what I've heard for over 10 years it's been a 1.5% raise every year.
So basically doubling the cost of living adjustment
right.
that they'll get every year.
Yep, exactly. So so not only will being able to increase our pay hopefully get us more people working for the city, but then also having issues such as the paid family leave, and it's not only for mothers and fathers with children, it's also covers for having to take care of elderly parents. So if someone has an elderly parent that they need to take care of, like this is the first time that we're going to be able to offer any sort of paid family leave. So I'm excited about that going on. Also excited about a few things going on. The state of Missouri, we approved medical marijuana. The list of the dispensaries and the growing facilities came out, and Cherokee Street has quite a large number of them. As far as I know, has 2 growing facilities, one testing, laboratory, and then 3 dispensaries. So I look at that kind of new industry, kind of a new potential coming to the Ninth Ward and to the city of St. Louis. So I've been talking with a couple other of my colleagues about possibly looking at what we can do from the city standpoint to kind of not only get rid of marijuana convictions and get rid of some people that are spending time in prison because of minor marijuana possession cases, but then also looking at for the future, if we are going to be, so we're still in a crunch with hiring people, what can we do to say, okay, if you have a medical marijuana card, why should you not be able to have some of the jobs, whether it's a mechanic or cutting grass or or filling potholes? Why is that a barrier to being able to get a job in the city when legally you can have a medical card? So that is one of the things I'm looking forward to in the next session, to really approaching that and seeing what we can do to get our city hiring practices more in line with what the state law is of being able to have a medical marijuana card.
Well, Alderman, thank you so much for joining us on this gloomy Monday afternoon, I think.
Yeah, it's
Monday
afternoon.
Yep.
And after daylight savings time.
Right.
Yeah.
We're all dragging a little bit.
Little bit.
For all of our stories, stlpublicradio.org. Follow me on Twitter at @jrosenbaum. Follow Rachel on Twitter at
@rlipman, 2 P's, 2 N's.
How can people follow you on Twitter or any other parts of the World Wide Web?
Oh, I'm out there somewhere. I don't do a whole lot of social media, but I do believe it's Dan Guenther STL on Twitter, and also Facebook and stuff. So, or just come on down to the Ninth Ward, walk down Cherokee Street, and you'll probably see me.
Cherokee Street is one of St. Louis's jewels, and I often use the Mud House, which I'm not sure is in your ward.
That is in my ward.
Oh, great, as a meeting place whenever I want to meet somebody. So
Right.
if you're meeting Jason Rosenbaum, chances are you're coming to the Mud House.
You're just doing all sorts of plugs for St. Louis businesses today, aren't you?
Well, yeah.
And don't forget about Whisk. They're doing their whole remodel right now, but that is another wonderful meeting place.
We're just going to, and on the
We're going to eat and drink our way down Cherokee
eat and
Street.
drink down Cherokee.
Also, rest in peace, Foam. Foam was a
Yes.
great place.
Yes.
Don't go there anymore because it no longer exists, but there are a lot of great businesses right there now. So until next time, so long.